Hey folks, I'm Tim from alphashooters.com. First of all, my apologies. Since becoming a parent last year, I've been buried in so many dirty nappies, I've simply not had time for YouTube. But I'm getting a little more sleep now, so hopefully that's going to change going forward. Anyway, you didn't come here to hear about my life. In this video, I'm going to help you to avoid spending more money than you need to on memory cards for the Sony A7 III. That's this camera here. So far, I've speed tested 18 different memory cards in my A7 III in order to figure out which memory cards clear the buffer the fastest and which offer the best value for money. Now, why do this? Well, you may or may not be aware that the speed figures quoted on the card labels are not the same speeds you get when you actually put the card in your camera. For example, the Sony SFG TUF UHS-II memory cards claim a write speed on the label of 299 megabytes per second. However, in the A7 III, they are only writing at around 132 megabytes per second, which is quite the difference. Also, if you shoot in JPEG, there's actually no speed benefit in camera to using an expensive UHS-II card over the cheaper UHS-I cards. But before I really get into this guide, if you aren't already a member of the new Alpha Shooters community forums that I set up late last year, please head over to alphashooters.com and take a look. You'll find forums for different genres, camera models, deals, monthly challenges and a marketplace. You'll also find our InstaView browser that lets you view all of the latest images posted in the forums, which can be filtered by genre such as wildlife or landscape, or just images from members that you like to follow. You'll find a link to the community down in the description, along with links to all of the memory cards that I'm going to recommend in this guide. Also, you'll find my A7 III accessories and lenses guides, and there's also a link to the Sony A7 III shooters group that I run on Facebook. So, first of all, let's just be crystal clear about the type of memory cards that are supported in the Sony A7 III. So, the A7 III has two memory card slots. Slot 1, which is at the bottom, supports a faster and more expensive UHS-II SD cards. These are the ones with 2 rows of pins. But slot 1 is also backwards compatible with the slower UHS-I cards, which have only 1 row of pins. Now, slot 2 at the top, this slot only supports UHS-I SD cards. Now, you can still use UHS-II cards in this slot, but they will be limited in camera to UHS-I speeds, so there's no in-camera benefit. However, you can actually enjoy faster read times if you use UHS-II cards when copying the images back over to your computer, providing you use a UHS-II card reader like the Sony MRW-S1. I'll drop a link down in the description of this video. Now, I've tried very hard to make this guide as simple as possible, but because the answer to which is the best memory card for the A7 III depends on how you shoot, the file format you're recording in, and also how you're recording to the media, it's not so straightforward. However, if you don't have the time or desire to listen to me waffle on, then simply purchase the Sony SFM UHS-II cards, along with the Sony MRW-S1 USB card reader. These offer the best performance for your money, and these are also the cards that I use myself. I also use these in slot 2, even though you can't write faster in camera to them, simply because I like to have the faster read speeds when copying the images over to my computer. These cards will also future-proof you if you decide to upgrade your camera in the future to a model with dual UHS-II slots. Now, if you do have a little more time and would like to understand why I recommend the cards that I do, then please stay tuned. So first of all, how you shoot will affect the memory cards that I'm going to recommend. So I'm going to very quickly cover shooters who don't shoot a lot of continuous bursts, like landscape shooters and video shooters. Then I'll be tackling those of you who shoot a lot of continuous bursts and need the fastest performance possible. If you want, you can just skip ahead using the timeline down in the description of this video. Right, if you don't shoot a lot of continuous bursts, where you're constantly filling the buffer, then you don't really need the fastest memory cards. For you guys, I'd recommend the SanDisk Extreme Pro UHS-I cards with a 170 read and 90 write on the label. The only benefit for you to using a faster UHS-II card is that you'll be able to copy the images over to your computer roughly twice as fast as you can compared to a UHS-I card. So if you don't like waiting for images to copy, then I would recommend the Sony SFM UHS-II cards instead, or the SFM Tough version of these cards if you want a little more durability. These are less than half the price of Sony's most expensive SFG Tough cards, but the real life read times when using the Sony MRWS1 USB card reader are identical to the more expensive SFG cards. Now, for you 4K video shooters, I'd also recommend the SanDisk Extreme Pro UHS-I cards, which are V30 rated and fast enough for shooting 4K video with a Sony A7III. Just make sure you go with a card that is 64GB or larger, which will be labelled SDXC, because the 32GB cards labelled SDHC use the FAT32 file system, and this will split your movies into 4GB chunks. But again, like with my previous recommendation for single shot shooters, if you want to enjoy faster read times, then go with the Sony SFM UHS-II cards, which are V660 rated for video. Now, for you action shooters who are shooting lots of continuous bursts, which cards do I recommend? Well, unfortunately it's not quite so straightforward for you guys, because it really depends on the file format that you're recording in, so uncompressed RAW, compressed RAW or JPEG, and also how you're recording to the cards. So if you were recording simultaneously to both cards, or sorting RAWs on slot 1 and JPEGs on slot 2. First of all, let me just show you how the file format affects the number of images that you can shoot before hitting the buffer, and also the time that it takes to empty the buffer. For these tests, I'm using the SanDisk Extreme Pro UHS-II card with 300 read and 260 write on my label. Now, top left I'm shooting uncompressed RAW, top right is compressed RAW, bottom left is extra fine JPEG, and bottom right is compressed RAW plus extra fine JPEG. Now, hopefully, as you can see, shooting uncompressed RAW clears the buffer the fastest. But because of the larger 50MB files, you can only shoot 58 shots before hitting the buffer. With compressed RAW, this increases to 106 shots and takes only around 4 seconds longer to clear the buffer. With JPEG extra fine, you can now shoot around 166 shots, but this takes a massive 53 seconds to clear the buffer. This is the slowest option that you can go for. If you shoot compressed RAW plus extra fine JPEGs, you can shoot around 79 shots, and these will clear the buffer in around 26 seconds. This is my own preference for my own shooting setup, as I like to have both file types. If you are interested in seeing how the different SD cards compare, then here are all of the results from my in-camera speed tests. As you can see, the SanDisk Extreme Pro UHS-II comes out on top. However, it's only marginally faster than the much cheaper Sony SFM UHS-II card when shooting in RAW. And when shooting in JPEG, there is no benefit to using this card. But because the SanDisk card costs double the price of the Sony SFM cards, it's really not worth spending the extra money for such a tiny performance benefit. So I strongly recommend going with the Sony SFM UHS-II cards or the tough version of this card for continuous shooting. Now, one bombshell that I'm going to reveal is that if you shoot in purely JPEG format, then there is no speed benefit to using a UHS-II card in slot 1. The A7III will not write JPEG files any faster to a UHS-II card than it can to a UHS-I card in slot 1. This is because the extra overhead from processing the files really slows down the write times. So here's an example. On the top left, I'm using the SanDisk Extreme Pro UHS-II card in slot 1. And on the top right, I'm using the SanDisk Extreme Pro UHS-I card. The file format is set to extra fine JPEGs, and I'm shooting in drive mode high plus for the maximum frame rates per second. And for comparison, on the bottom, I'm shooting in compressed RAW format to both cards. So as you can see, the number of shots recorded and the time to clear the buffer is identical when shooting JPEGs. The UHS-II card is only faster when shooting compressed RAW. So if you shoot JPEGs, the only benefit you will get from using a UHS-II card in slot 1 is when you are copying them over to your computer via a UHS-II card reader. there's no in-camera speed benefit, I'm afraid. Now, if you have your record media settings set up to record simultaneously to both slots 1 and 2 at the same time, then there is also no benefit to using a UHS-II memory card in slot 1. With this setup, the write speed is restricted to the maximum write speed of a UHS-I card in slot 2. Now, what if you're using sort mode to record raw images to slot 1 and JPEGs to slot 2? Now, this setup is slower than writing to a single card, but unlike simultaneous recording, there is still a benefit to using UHS-II cards in slot 1, but only when shooting uncompressed RAW to slot 1 and JPEGs to slot 2. If you shoot compressed RAW to slot 1 and JPEGs to slot 2, then the number of shots that you can take before hitting the buffer and the buffer clearing time is the same as when using a UHS-I card in slot 1. Right, I've almost finished now. And now, like I've mentioned a few times in this guide, although there might not always be a benefit to using the faster UHS-II cards in camera, there is a benefit when copying the images from them over to your computer. So here's how long it takes to copy 10 gigabytes of images with a SanDisk Extreme Pro UHS-II versus the much cheaper Sony SFM UHS-II card, and also versus the SanDisk Extreme Pro UHS-I card when using the Sony MRW S1 card reader. As you can see, the cheaper Sony UHS-II card performs equally as well as the much more expensive SanDisk card, and both cards outright the UHS-I card by over twice the speed. So if you're still here, congratulations and thank you for listening to me waffle on. Hopefully you now have a much better idea as to which memory card to purchase based on your own particular shooting setup, and hopefully I will have saved you a little bit of money too. If you found this video helpful, then I'm sure you know the drill by now. Please like, subscribe and drop a comment down below if you have any questions. And last but definitely not least, please do check out our community forums over on alphashooters.com. I'd really love to see you there. So until next time, happy shooting.